Hi, it's Helen Godden here and welcome to my YouTube channel, Helen Godden Quilts, where it's all about free motion quilting. I really enjoy my free motion quilting. I usually work on my Handy Quilter Sweet 16, but whenever I'm demonstrating or doing an online class, you can always work along with me, whether you've got a domestic machine or even a long arm machine. So today I've been working on a new design. It's a Wildflower 9 patch, all based on the Australian Wildflowers that I love so much. Now I've of course painted it because that's what I love to do, and I use my Lumiere paints. But of course, if you purchase this design, you could do it in applique, you could do it in a different kind of paint, in dye, in crochet, embroidery. You could do it however you like. There's all different ways you could actually treat these blocks. But whilst I was doing the quilting, we had that camera rolling and we've filmed some of the trickier sections where I've done some pretty exciting free motion quilting. So this new design is based on the wildflowers of Australia. They are very unique flowers, unique to our country specifically. And so some of them have very unusual names. We have one called a Flannel Flower, and it is a little fluffy flower. It's got like a velvety surface. It's a little bit like an Edelweiss that you might find in Switzerland, but it's quite unique to Australia. We have bottle brush. We have this little one here. It's called the Sturt Desert Pea. It's a very unusual shape. It's bright red with black and it stands up like little soldiers on the desert sand. We've got the Wattle. Now that is the Australian national flower. The Wattle is little puffy little yellow balls that makes a lot of people sneeze actually, but that is our national flower. We've got the Waratah, which is a beautiful, very elegant, tall flower. I've even got the spider orchid on here. So for the background of that one, I have actually stitched spider webs. And this one is called Kangaroo Paw. And the flowers of that one are actually shaped like a little kangaroo's paws. But what I've done as I was quilting them, I've had the camera rolling and I've recorded all the different tricky styles that I've done in some of those blocks. So I'd love it if you watched along here, got some ideas, got some inspiration to help you with your next quilting project. It's free to join along, the pattern you can purchase, but otherwise sit back with a cup of tea and enjoy watching me do some quilting. So this one here is going to be gum leaves and gum blossom. And I have painted with my beautiful Lumiere paints, and I originally marked my design on there with my Panda pencil. Okay, the Panda pencil is the one that works on the dark and doesn't brush off accidentally. It irons away, so it's brilliant for marking things. Okay, so once I've painted my piece, now you could do this in applique or however you want to do it. I'm then stitching in the black outlines, which is effectively the ditch stitching, and then I'm going to go ahead and add patterning into this design. Now you can see how stitching into those shapes really does start to bring the whole thing to life, and that applies when you're doing applique. All too often people concentrate with their applique on securing the edge, but if you give us some detail, particularly with flowers, of their stamens or their petals or the shapes on the leaves, etc., it can do so much more for your applique than just dealing with the outer edge. Now you can see when I'm doing my ditch stitching, I sometimes go over the same track twice to get to another area. Well, that's quite okay because we're stitching black on black. It's all good. Something that's really important when you're doing these bubbles is to have them touch this applique edge so that they look like they are behind the little gum blossom. So by having there be half bubbles, it gives the illusion that this circular shape is behind the blossom and gives it more dimension. Don't ever underestimate a good stipple. Okay, this area here in the dark purple, when I add the stippling to it, it starts to really come to life. So if you were to do this in applique, you could definitely have the two different sections in the background there with that circle appliqued on, and that would make for a really interesting backdrop for the block, and then have the gum leaves and gum blossom on top. So this one is the Kangaroo Paw, and I've got some flying geese designs up here. Now I've done this with paint. You can certainly do this in applique, but what I'm thinking is that the background here is going to have a variation on spirals that I call steampunk. So let's have a look at that. It gets a bit tricky when there's a lot of shapes interrupting your flow. So you can see I've just moved down into here now. There's space there for me to start another one and then fill in the blanks with what looks like it was meant to be. There we go. I think that looks quite nice on the metallic especially. Nice contrast there between a busy area of the flowers with a simple background, a horizontal pattern to really push back. The flying geese give it lovely direction, and then the steampunk just jazzes it up that little bit. I wanted to show you this particular block. This is actually the spider orchid, and so in keeping with the theme of the word spider, I'm going to do some spider webs in this area here. So I've just made a little mark. So here I go, out to the little dot, back to the edge, move along. So I'm creating a spider's web, just like a spider would do. Okay, once you've got your spokes, that's the structure for the first spider web. You then do little arcs from one line to the next, going around in that spiral shape. So being just like a spider and creating that web shape. Okay, I've got another dot here I'm going to work towards. Now don't just stitch right the way through, because I want to avoid it being totally symmetrical like an asterisk or a Union Jack or something. So I try to keep it random, more like nature. Finish back in the middle and then start that spiraling again. Use that ditch to travel. Okay, so I'm going to put another little mark just out here somewhere. Okay, and then I'll move down here and do much the same thing. This one's all about the wattle, which is Australia's national flower. And what I've done here in this blue section is a grid, and I've used my favourite Panda pencil. Okay, that's going to iron off completely when I've finished, but I've marked that grid so that now I can do cathedral windows. It could not be done without that grid on there. It would be extremely difficult. But I'm going to start up here and work my way down, making a little bump in each of the grid segments. Okay, then back up again, closing that off. Bump across and start again. Now it's only a partial one, but we keep going, just following that grid. And we're going to do all the verticals first, and then we'll do all the horizontals. But you can see at the top here, I always continue the little shape to make it look like it continues beyond the border, okay? And I will do the same thing down here. It makes a big difference. Across here. Now start going across. And you can see that little pattern starting to develop, and you start to get circular shapes. It's rather a clever one, this one. So if you've just joined me on Helen Garden Quilts on YouTube, I welcome you on board, and I hope you're going to enjoy lots of videos that we create. I'm always filming in my studio, so you get insights into my creative process. You get to see how I actually quilt things. You might see how I design things, how I paint things. I share a lot from my studio, perhaps too much, but that's how it goes. I also take that camera with me whenever I'm on a quilt adventure. So when I go to the various quilt shows around my country or overseas. So I'll be sharing those kind of videos with you. As well, I have online classes and tutorials and workshops on my website. But for free tutorials where you can quilt along with me and get educated and inspired, it's all going to be happening here on Helen Garden Quilts on my YouTube channel. So if you don't want to miss out, how about you subscribe, and then you'll get a notification every time I post something new. Education and inspiration always. See you later.